Daf Yomi, Tractate of Metzia, page 89. A, top of the page, page test. When Aleph, now with the words Mechdi, Kol Mile Isanahu Bachasima, etc. Now consider all matters. In other words, all animals are included in the halacha of muzzling, as we derive a verbal analogy between the term an ox stated here and the term an ox stated with regard to Shabbat. Just as the prohibition against having one's animal perform labor on Shabbat applies not only to oxen but to all animals, as explicitly stated in Torah, Deuteronomy 5:14. So too, the halach of muzzling includes all animals, not merely oxen. If so, and the term ox in this verse does not limit the halacha to that animal alone, let the merciful one write, in general terms, you shall not thresh while muzzling. Why do I need the word ox that the merciful one writes? It serves to juxtapose and compare the one who muzzles to the muzzled animal. And likewise, to compare the muzzled animal to the one who muzzles. Just as the one who muzzles a person may eat from produce attached to the ground, so too the muzzled animal may eat from attached produce. And just as the muzzled animal may eat from detached produce, so too the one who muzzles may eat from detached produce. Tanur Rabban, the sages taught another exposition. With regard to the wording in the verse, you shall not muzzle the ox in its threshing. The verse mentions threshing, just as threshing is unique in that it applies to an item grown from the ground, and it is performed at the time of the completion of its work, and a laborer may eat from it. So too with regard to any item that is grown from the ground, a laborer may eat it. This serves to exclude one who milks a cow, one who makes butter from cream, and one who makes cheese from milk, as these are not grown from the ground, and therefore a laborer may not eat them. Laborer may not eat them. And the laborer may not eat them. The Gemara asks, why do I need this exposition? This halacha can be derived in the words of the verse, when you come into your neighbor's vineyard. Deuteronomy 23:25. As these actions are not performed in a vineyard, the Gemara answers, it was necessary to state this halacha, as it might enter your mind to say that since the merciful one writes standing in Deuteronomy 23:26, today was May 26th, as explained earlier, this serves to include all items that stand. In other words, produce of all kinds. One might have thought that it also serves to include items that are not grown from the ground. The Tana therefore teaches us that this halacha applies only to food that grows from the ground. It is taught in another braita with regard to the same item, threshing, that just as threshing is unique in that it applies to an item that is at the time of the completion of its work, and the laborer may eat from it, so too with regard to any item that is at the time of the completion of its work, the laborer may eat it. This serves to exclude one who weeds garlic and onions, In other words, one hired to remove the wild growths from among garlic and onions. The reason is that since it is not the completion of their work, a laborer may not eat from them. The Gemara asks, why do I need this exposition? It can be derived from, but you shall not put any in your vessel, Deuteronomy 23:25, which indicates that if the laborer does not place the food into the owner's vessel, he is not permitted to eat. Gemara answers, no, it is necessary for the time to teach the final halacha, even though he who plucks and removes the small ones from between the thick ones, and therefore the work of the small garlic and onions has been completed. Nevertheless, the laborer may not eat from them, as this is not the completion of the work of the entire field. It is taught in another writer concerning the term threshing, that just as threshing is unique in that it applies to an item whose work is not yet completed for tithes, and a laborer may eat from it. So, too, with regard to any item whose work is not completed for tithes, a laborer may eat it. This serves to exclude one who separates dates and dried figs, which are initially gathered together and stuck to each other before the laborer splits them apart with a rake. The reason that, since its work is completed for tithes, when it has been gathered from the field, a laborer may not eat from it. Tanya, and the Gemara raises a difficulty, but isn't Tanya Braita with regard to one who separates dates and figs? This laborer may eat from it. Rav Papa said when that Braita is taught, is referring to unripe dates, which are plucked before they are ready and placed on the ground in order to ripen fully. The work of these fruits has not yet been completed, even after they have been separated from each other. It is taught in another Braita. With regard to the same item, threshing, that just as the threshing is unique, that applies to an item whose work is not yet completed for challah, and the laborer may eat from it. So too with regard to any item whose work is not complete for challah, a laborer may eat from it. This serves to exclude the one who kneads dough, and the one who smooths it over with water and oil, and one who bakes and its work is completed for challah, and therefore a laborer may not eat from it. The Gemara raises a difficulty. But why do I need this halacha? Hasn't it worked already? It hasn't worked already. It completed for tithes when the produce was brought inside the house. It was ready. It was ready. Started that once the work has been completed to produce, which is subject to tithes, a laborer may no longer partake of it. Lo kashya. Answer is no, this is not difficult, since in this Braita we are dealing with places outside of Eretz Yisrael where there is no obligation of tithes. The more raises the difficulty is so, this is referring to a place outside Eretz Yisrael. The obligation to Zerach Challah also does not apply. Rather, the ruling in the Braita is actually stated with regard to Israel, and it is not difficult, as it is referring to those 7 years in which they conquered Eretz Yisrael, and to whom the 7 in which they were divided it. As the Master said, during the 7 years in which the Jewish people conquered Eretz Yisrael, and the 7 in which they divided Eretz Yisrael, they were obligated in Challah, but they were not obligated in the separation of tithes. Ma'aser, the Gemara raises a difficulty concerning the matter. The Gemara raises a difficulty concerning this answer. Is the obligation to separate tithes a decisive factor with regard to labor? That is not the case, as the completion of the work is the decisive factor, while the obligation to separate tithes is mentioned only because it coincides with the completion of the work. Even if there is no mitzvah to separate tithes, nevertheless the work is completed at the same stage. Rather, Ravina said one should combine the two Braita and teach them as one, as follows. With regard to the term threshing, just as threshing is unique in that it applies to an item whose mark is not yet completed for tithe, in the case of most produce, and an item which is not completed for challah, in the case of species of grain, a laborer may eat from it. So too with regard to any item whose work is not completed for tithe or for challah, a laborer may eat from it. A dilemma was raised for the sages. With regard to a laborer, what is the halacha concerning the possibility he may singe fruit or grain in a fire, improve its taste, and eat it? The question is whether this is considered like eating grapes and something else which is prohibited or not. The Gemara suggests coming to hear a resolution to this problem from Metzia, and a homeowner is permitted to give his laborers wine back to drink, so they will not eat many grapes from his harvest, and for their part the laborers are permitted to dip their bread in brine, so that they will eat many grapes. This bright indicates that such a practice is permitted.